Good evening and welcome to Wisdom Wednesday. It is Naomi, the How To Chick, and I am here this evening to talk to you about self actualization on the topic, do you even know you? All right, if this is your first time catching one of my lives, my name is Naomi. I go by the How To Chick. I'm a child of God, a wife, a mom, an attorney, a coach, a mentor, a speaker, and an author. And I know that that is a lot of things, but that's okay. Because the main thing you need to know about me is that I believe that you can do anything, but you can't do everything. And the most important thing is that you must choose wisely. Tonight, I'm talking on the topic, do you even know you? As some of you may know, I have recently begun coaching again. And a big part of that has been leaning in to recognizing that many people that will go out and look for coaches, that will go out and try to get into therapy, that are frustrated and stuck, are not frustrated and stuck because they're lazy, because they've fallen behind. They fail at goal setting, at becoming who it is that they desire to be, because they do not recognize that it is a process. It is not a transformation. It's a metamorphosis, which means it does take time, which is, it's easy for me to relate to because I was once very bad at goal setting myself. I thought my transformation would be a surprise. One day I would just magically wake up and be the kind of person who could do the things that needed to be done to have the life I wanted. But that fantasy ignored something brutally important. The life that I was living right then was evidence of my identity. It was evidence of my environment, my mindset, and my capacity at that time. So if none of those things changed, why and how would my results ever change? And that's how goal setting collapses for most people. So, as part of my cohort, I've recognized that it's not a strategy problem for people, it's a self actualization problem. And self actualization, in the words of Abraham Maslow, is the process of fully realizing your individual potential, becoming everything you're capable of becoming. And the truth is, it's a growth need for every single person. It's on Maslow's hierarchy of needs: food, shelter, clothing, safety. Those are deficiency needs. So you feel the pain immediately because you know that you have lack, but self actualization is a little different. It's driven by the internal thought. You know, we listen to the Disney songs, we see the movies, and we see there must be more than this provincial life, right? From Belle's song in Beauty and the Beast. We see people who are just born knowing that where they are and who they are is not who they were created to be. There's a pull that each one of us experiences at some point in our lives or another to become more fully ourselves. But here's the uncomfortable truth: if you're not growing, you are dying. But many people never even get to identifying their growth need because they're still fighting to stabilize the lower level of needs in their lives. Today, the truth is, most people fail at goals, but there is a pathway out. I think that there was some research done that said only 8% of people achieve at least 50% of the goals that they set for themselves on a year-to-year basis. 8%. That's wild. And so tonight, I'm going to tell you there's a pathway out of it. There are 4 major reasons that people fail at goal setting, and there is a way out. One, they're setting goals for the person that they are wishing and hoping and praying that they one day will be, not the person they actually are. Yeah. Most people set goals with zero respect for their track record. They don't start with truth or acceptance. They start with a fantasy. And I did this for many years. I ignored my predilections. I am not a morning person. I have never been a morning person. And yet every year my goals would be around getting up early to go to the gym, getting up early, like super early in the morning to have my prayer time. I was going to start getting up at 5 or 4 or 6, whatever it was. It lasted all of 3 days before I was back to sleeping in. And then I would allow myself to fall off of my goals because that was the only path to accomplishing them that I set. So if we're not accepting who we are and how we're showing up, our friendships, our capacity, who we are in the season that we are living in, the environment that we're living in, right? The emotional patterns that we have displayed over our entire lives, the history that we have of quitting, delaying, avoiding, overcommitting. So what ends up happening is people pick goals that clash with who they fundamentally are, with their temperament, and with their real lives. And here's, I want to give you an example. I This one is a wild example, but I knew of someone who kept telling me they wanted to be a doctor. They wanted to be a doctor. This person absolutely hated science, skipped the few days of dissections, couldn't stand the sight of blood. And I know that there are dozens of other types of medical specialties. So I would always say, what about radiology? What about cosmetology? No, they wanted to be a surgeon. And this doesn't happen for everybody. This was in high school. And I know that person now is not a doctor. But at the time, I was just like, why are you going to try to force yourself into this position? But it's similar also to a person who is painfully introverted and hates talking to people, is a conflict avoidant, and has never completed a degree saying they want to be the president. That's not a dream, it's a mismatch. A goal that conflicts with your nature will always feel like self-betrayal, and you will sabotage it. Not because you are lazy, but because you're trying to force a life that doesn't fit. So self-actualization starts with self-awareness. And self-awareness is simply the ability to say, this is where I am. This is who I am, not who I'm pretending to be, not who I want to be on Monday morning, not who I am when I'm super motivated or when I have an accountability partner in my inbox, who I am consistently. Because if you can't face reality about who you are, your goals become denial dressed up as ambition. Failure starts with self-deception. Okay, reason number 2. We set goals based on the outcomes that we see without adjusting the input. The inputs are so important. It's just like ChatGPT. If you've ever used ChatGPT, people are like, oh, ChatGPT lies. ChatGPT will tell you whatever you want to hear. Yeah. Your output is only as good as the input you give it. It's just a machine. And the truth is, our brains are machines. And so the inputs matter. And the inputs for our goal setting have to be our identity, our environment, the truth about our relationships. You can't keep the same patterns in your life and think that you're going to achieve a different life. If your friendships normalize distraction, chaos, and quitting, your goals are going to feel impossible. I talked to you about that when I was, talking about weight loss. In many cases, I'm not saying your friends are haters. I'm just saying going out and going to brunch and saying, "Oh, you're gonna just gonna your way into not losing the weight." If your environment is designed for comfort and impulse, discipline will feel like punishment. And here's the big one, and I did an entire series on this. If your capacity is already maxed out with survival because you have trauma that you have not addressed, you are in an impossible situation at work or in your marriage. Adding one more big goal is not ambition, it's delusion. And people that treat goals like wishes, writing them down, praying about them, even trying to manifest them, you speak them out loud, but returning to doing the same thing with the same inputs will never achieve those goals. They will produce the same thing. Speaking one thing out of your mouth while your the systems that are in your body, your environment, they vote against you every single day. Self-actualization before goal setting forces you to ask a better question. What kind of person with what kind of systems would naturally produce the outcome that I want to see. Because the goal isn't the point. As a coach, I have to tell people this all the time. The goal is not the point. It was never the point. There's a book I love. I've talked about it before. It's called The Dream Giver, and it really talks about the process that we go through in becoming a person who can do the thing, who can leave behind the familiar to go into the unfamiliar and deal with doubts and fears and border bullies to become a person who can do the thing that can have the life that we desire to live. But the reason the goal isn't the point is because there's always going to be another goal. If you're not growing, you're dying. So Maslow talks about self-actualization in the nature and the hierarchy of needs. And he said that self-actualization is not an arrival point. You never get there. It's a continuous process. And while that may seem stressful to some people who are very much, I want to just check it off on the list, to people who have learned who they are, who have learned to give themselves grace, who adapt their lives to show up in a way that works for them season by season, recognizing the limitations that they face with their finances, with their capacity, with their mental health, with their families, recognizing that you can never arrive, but that in the inimitable words of Michelle Obama, you are simply always becoming, should be a reason for joy. Instead of obsessing over the finish line, you can learn how to build the structure that makes the progress that will lead you to the life that you want to see inevitable. Now let's go deeper. Because even if you adjust your inputs, right? Even if you regulate for all of the things that are going on in your life, most people still fail for yet a third reason. And this is one of the difficult ones. They refuse self-acceptance. They decide to fight themselves instead of building with themselves. This is kind of what I was just talking about. It's not just being aware of who you are. It's not about a lack of information. It's about a war inside of themselves. Like me for 10 years trying to force myself to become a morning person to work out. Me deciding I don't like the way I look, so I'm going to bully myself about that. And I'm going to go on a new diet every 6 weeks that I will fall off of in 3 weeks instead of just doing what really works, which is eating what I want in moderation and actually tracking that. It set me up on a roller coaster of failure for year after year after year. And so the third reason people fail is that they don't like their pace. They don't like their story. They don't like their limitations. They don't want to accept their capacity. They hate and have not dealt with their past and their trauma. And they don't recognize that accepting the totality of who they are is absolutely necessary to start building on the person that they are to become. So they are internally at war. Every goal is punishment. I must change. I am not good enough as I am. Self-acceptance isn't settling, and it isn't saying that who we are is who we're going to be forever. It's just telling the truth without self-hatred. This is why the serenity prayer is so important, guys. We have to learn how to accept the things that we cannot change. And part of that is where we've come from, what we've gone through, how that has changed and crafted our story and the way that we show up. We have to recognize that we need courage to change the things that we can. And most times, those things are our belief systems. And it starts with accepting ourselves, forgiving ourselves and others. And the last part of the serenity prayer is the wisdom to know the difference. It's so important. If you keep demanding that you become a completely different species than you have ever been, you will burn out, you will resent your life, and you will yet again abandon your goal. Self-acceptance starts like, I have these tendencies, so I need to make sure I have these guardrails in place before I begin this. I get really overwhelmed and I burn out. So I need fewer priorities if I'm going to add this. I avoid hard conversations. And so I need accountability and I need structure. I'm not consistent yet, right? I'm going to build consistency before I add anything new. When you accept the reality and the truth of who you are, you stop wasting your energy performing and you invest your energy in actually moving forward, progress. So now it's time for reason number 4, and this one hits everyone. And the reason is because we don't understand what it is. And so let's just get into it. The fourth reason is people lack self-esteem. And yes, this can come from a lack of self-acceptance. But when you lack self esteem, the result is that you will not stay in the room long enough with discomfort. You don't want to be uncomfortable, right? Long enough to grow. Discomfort is holding yourself accountable. Discomfort is saying to your girlfriends, hey, I'm saving for a house, so I can't go on that trip. Hey, I'm focusing on paying off debt or retirement. Hey, I'm planning to quit my job in the next 18 months to build my business, so I need to make these moves. It's being able to say, I'm going to take on a roommate because I want to be able to have some financial freedom. I am going to stop going out to eat and portion, meal plan and portion prepare at home because I need to lose the weight. I am going to go into therapy because I recognize that there are some things in me that are keeping me from being able to maintain healthy relationships. And I want to address that. Self esteem, we think, is what we think about ourselves. But Maslow includes self esteem as a core human need, and he distinguishes two kinds. And I think it's really important for us to recognize that there is a difference between esteem from others, which is the recognition and admiration. That's fragile, right? People believe what they want, they think what they want, but inner self-esteem, self-worth, respect, confidence in our competence, in our skills, in our ability, in our belief in ourselves is so much more important. But most people chase the fragile kind. They want other people to see and applaud them. So they make the declaration right on social media in January. This is going to be my year. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. And, this happens so much. I'm not going to date myself. You guys know how old I am. I've been around a while, but it used to be in my 20s, we would always see this grand list of declarations in January. And now a great deal number of years later, we no longer see those declarations. People are more quiet because they feel as though, and if this is you, you are not alone. They have made the same decisions, the same goals, the same vision boards, the same dream casting, the same resolutions year after year after year to applause because everybody's like, yes, it's wonderful that you want to lose this weight, that you're going to start your business, that you're going back to grad school, that you're going to move to Timbuktu, wherever. People want the applause first before they have the competence, before they have the skill, before they even believe in themselves that they can accomplish the thing. They want validation before they can have the discipline. They want the identity before they're willing to do the work. So the moment a goal is embarrassing, the moment it takes longer than they want, the moment it's uncertain or messy or difficult, the moment they feel as though it is not showing well to the public, they quit. Not because the goal itself was wrong, but because their self-esteem cannot handle being seen as a beginner. And when you don't have a stable internal self-esteem, you will continue to pick goals that give you quick emotional wins, right? Instead of goals that actually build your life. And self-esteem doesn't come from the affirmations of other people. It comes from keeping the promises you make to yourself. Every time you build on a promise that you have made to yourself, when you keep it, it's like a brick on a wall of your self-esteem. But every time you break a promise to yourself, it's like knocking a brick out. That's why self-actualization requires action, not hype. You could say whatever you want. It's what you do. Yes, you must self actualize by believing, but you have to reduce your belief to steps. Hold yourself accountable to those steps until you become undeniable to yourself. If you want the life you're dreamcasting, the life you've been praying for year after year, the life you have a vision board after vision board after vision board containing, you have to stop treating your goals like something that is going to magically appear and start recognizing that growth is the only path to achieving goals. Growth is your need. So the pathway is 4 simple steps. 1, self-awareness, get clear on who you are, where you are, what your tendencies and predilections actually are. 2, self-acceptance. Please stop fighting reality. Start building with who you are, not against who you are. 3, self-esteem. Build your confidence through competence and skill. Start keeping the promises you make to yourself, and then you get there. Self actualization. You begin to walk in who you were created to be when you reduce your dreams to goals and actionable steps. So, tonight, here's your action for today, not next week, today. Write down a dream that you keep repeating. Maybe if you're around my age, it's a dream that you have quietly put under your mattress or your pillowcase. You've stopped thinking about it because you've said it so many times that you've lost faith that it's possible. I want you to go dig that dream up, pull it out from wherever you've buried it, and then sit with it for a few minutes and answer these 3 simple questions honestly, as honestly as you can. What does my track record say about why this has not happened for me? 1. 2. What input? What is it in my friendship, my environment, my decision making that has to change for this to even be realistic for me? And lastly, what is one step that I can do daily for the next 7 days that proves I am ready to become the person who lives this? Because the person you want to become is not waiting on motivation. She's not. She's waiting on alignment. And alignment begins the minute you stop lying to yourself about yourself. So tonight, the question for you is very simple. Do you even know you? If you can answer yes to that, then you're ready to set goals. If not, ask yourself those 3 questions and set one small promise, one goal that you can reduce to a step that you can do consistently to keep a promise to yourself, to start building on your self esteem in such a way that you will begin to believe again that you are a person and can become the person, that girl, who can do everything that is required to live the life that you were created to live. Knowing yourself is key. So take the time to do the self work and the evaluation. But always remember, you can do anything, but you cannot do everything. Choosing wisely requires being true to who you are. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next week on Wisdom Wednesday. Good night.